Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're bringing you a first look at upcoming Tier 9 Premium Japanese Battleship Iwami. Iwami is actually a really interesting ship to me, as someone who is not much of a fan of Japanese battleships in general. I actually kind of like where they're taking this ship. If you remember about some 12, 18 months ago, I forget when it was exactly, Tier 9 Japanese Premium Hizen was made available in the game. And if you are familiar with Hizen's layout and overall look, you might look at this ship and go, well, duh, Raptor, that is a Hizen. Well, yeah, it kind of is. But it's got some noteworthy differences that I really kind of like her better than Hizen. At least on paper. I mean, you can't play. I mean, I can play the ship, but even if I couldn't talk about it just yet. But let's point out the paper differences. I'll explain why I like the look of this ship better than Hizen, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Okay. All right. First things first, as we do, looking into all things warships, starting with survivability, 80,700 hit points. Now, over the course of this video, I'm going to spend a lot of time comparing this ship to Hizen because they are very clearly directly related to each other. But in the grand scheme of things, I'll also try to place her in kind of the hierarchy of Tier 9 battleships, right? So 80,700 hit points is about 5,000 more hit points than Hizen. And it is probably maybe slightly above average in terms of health pool for a Tier 9 battleship. Most Tier 9 battleships, as you kind of look down the list, 75,000, 74,700, a few in the high 70s, a few in the mid 80s. Actually, really just one or two really kind of at that end of the scale. So you're kind of firmly in the middle. This is a nice health pool for a Tier 9 battleship. So really solid to look, really solid starting point there. 37% torpedo protection, identical to Hizen, and very, very good. Definitely above average. We're not getting up to Musashi levels here because, I mean, who is? But in terms of her competition at Tier 9, you're behind only Lepanto and Alsace, and of course Musashi, and that looks to be it. So there's literally a handful of Tier 9 battleships ahead of you, and then there's you. And of course you're tied with Hizen. So really solid torpedo protection. Nice to see. Armor layout is identical to Hizen as near as I can figure. I have been unable to find any differences yet between the two ships beyond the natural differences between the turret armor, because it is a different turret on top of each barbette, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Just to give you the quick overview, you're looking at a 32mm bow plus deck. So from an extremity perspective, there's not a lot to get excited about here. She will take full high HE shell penetrations from pretty much every regular heavy cruiser 8-inch HE on up that will fall onto her deck. So that is unfortunate, but it is just a fact of life. She's got a 356mm belt here, basically between the barbettes, and also carrying a little more armor all the way back over the steering gear and the rudder pentals, all the way back here at the stern. So if you find yourself in a stern chase, if you can get a little bit of angle, you might be able to bounce some shells off this extra armor plating at the stern. Let's see. As I pointed out way back when looking in the Hizen video, I'm going to peel away everything but her citadel. Actually, I'll leave the barbettes on as well. If you know Yamato's armor scheme, you know that Yamato has that very famous forward cheek citadel. Hizen has a kind of a weird cousin to that, right? The citadel down here, quite low, very well protected, also angled, but then it's got this little angled section, this thwart ship piece here, and where it kind of melds into the forward barbette of a turret. I have not played against Hizen enough to know if you can reliably citadel the ship kind of through the cheek shot as you can with Yamato. But I know that it is a potential vulnerability in her armor scheme, so if you're looking into the ship, be aware of it. She does have a bit of a turtleback, but it's not kind of the extreme slope you're used to seeing and thinking of when you look at turtleback armor schemes, right? The German turtleback armor schemes are very steep on this slope, usually 45 degrees to the parallel, sometimes 40 degrees. This is more like maybe like 60, 65 degrees. This feels to me like it's really it would do a decent job of shrugging off plunging fire that might sneak into this particular area. But at short ranges, right, shells are going to come arcing in, and as they start to drop off, it feels like they're almost going to hit this kind of like perfectly perpendicular for full pins at a minimum, if not straight up citadel hits. So yeah, I mean, it might fool you into thinking it's a turtleback, but I don't know that it's going to behave like one. So keep that in mind, all right? She does have some 140 millimeter armor here on the roof of the casemate. When you combine that with the armor here on the roof of the Citadel and the armor above on the deck, there's a lot of pancake layers for AP bombs to get through here. She should, most of the AP bombs she faces should still penetrate. Most of them have in the 200 plus millimeters of penetration. But you are, like some of the lower ones, like I think Hornets might have kind of lower, slightly lower penetration values. You may find that some of the AP bombs don't actually penetrate. So you might have a small leg up there depending on the opposing carrier. Maneuverability and concealment are almost identical to Hizen. Maneuverability is 100% identical. 28.2 knots, 880 on the turning circle, 17 on the rudder shift. She's a battleship. She's going to handle like it. She's not that fast. That's basically the way you're going to sum this up. She does have a relatively short-ish overall length compared to some of the other Tier 9 battleships. But 880 is nothing to get excited about in terms of turning circle. There are some Tier 9 battleships that do better than this. Concealment-wise, 16.4 on the surface. That is stripped naked here. I've turned off her permanent camo that comes with the ship so you can see this number. That is a full kilometer better than Hizen. That's nice, but it's not quite best in tier. You're on kind of that side of the bell curve, right? You're on the good side of the bell curve, but you're not going to be winning any stealth competitions at this tier. Full stealth rig for Iwami will get her down to 12.9 kilometers on the surface. That still trails Marlborough's 12.1, Lion's 11.6, Marco Polo's 11.9, ties her with Jean Bart. So there are some ships that are better than you. Missouri is slightly better than this, but there are a whole lot of ships that are worse than you. So it is a small advantage if you're in a battleship on battleship engagement, but of course, 12 and change for almost 13 kilometers for surface detection. Most cruisers are going to outspot you. Main battery. Now, this is where we're going to start seeing some of the differences. If you remember Hizen is 4 triple-barreled turrets. All right, Iwami is basically the same gun. These are 16-inch guns, the Japanese 410 millimeter guns, but these are in double-barreled turrets. So she has 2 forward of the superstructure and then 2 all the way back aft. So you are literally giving up 1/3 of the firepower that Hizen has. Raptor, why do you like this ship? You're giving up a ton of firepower. Well, here's why. Mainly the reload. Hizen was punished for her barrel configuration with a 38-second main battery reload time. Iwami improves that by basically a third, down to 25 seconds. Not only that, her turret traverse is 10 seconds faster for that 180 turning circle. 35 seconds here versus Hizen's 45 seconds. Presumably, the extra weight of the barrel and all the machinery and everything going, allows the turret to traverse quicker. So, Iwami, if you're comparing her to Hizen, roughly the same hull, more hit points, faster turning turrets, and faster reload. Dispersion, shell performance, maximum range, all of that is identical. These are the same guns, same ballistics, same shells, everything. If you own a Hizen, you know exactly how this gun is going to behave, okay? The only difference when it comes to main battery, and we'll talk about this again in a minute when we get to consumables, but you can see here the aircraft facilities on the very stern of the ship do not exist. They've all been basically washed away here on Iwami, so you cannot take a spotter plane to extend your range past this 20.3 kilometers the way you can with Hizen. One other reason that I really like the idea of this ship, again on paper so far, is there is a Sigma improvement, okay? So I'm getting the same dispersion between Iwami and Hizen, but Iwami, because she's only firing 8 shells, she has a 1.9 Sigma versus Hizen's 1.7. So you're firing 8 shells, you're firing them faster, you're firing them a little more consistently. I won't say accurately, because technically on paper the accuracy is the same, but your consistency of the shell dispersion within that pattern should be more regular, okay, more regularly towards the center, and the turrets traverse faster. So in general, in my opinion, on paper, again, Iwami's main battery looks like it's going to be more comfortable to play with than Hizen. That 38-second reload always felt terrible to me. It felt like Hizen was trying to be an American, one of those big fat American battleships like Minnesota or Vermont or Kansas, right? With the 12 barrels of the big throw weight but the crazy long reload. And I don't like her for the same reason that I don't like Kansas and Minnesota and Vermont. That's a personal choice, right? If you like those ships, you might love Hizen. I never cared for them, and so Hizen and I never got along. But so far, I like the look of Iwami. It's going to get better, though, if you're on this mindset. So keep that in mind, okay? Secondary armament moves from double-barreled 127s down each side of the ship to 4 of the double-barreled 100mm mounts. So Iwami, in this instance, her secondary armament actually gets worse from a straight secondary perspective. Of course, the 100mm shells are not going to do nearly as much damage as the 127s. However, these are dual-purpose batteries. And what I mean when I say it does get a little better is that Iwami has significantly better anti-aircraft battery than Hizen does, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So she's got 4 of the 100mm secondaries down each side of the superstructure, and then, of course, you've got 3 basically 155 Mogami turrets kind of back here in this very odd configuration in the stern that do their thing. Iwami does not feel like a brawler to me. However, should you find yourself in that situation, she's got a lot of barrels. Like, I mean, I don't think I'd build this ship for secondaries. But if you did and you drove her like that, well, you might get something out of it. So keep that in mind if you're a little crazy and you love brawler battleships. Maybe there's something there. Now, you probably noticed it a minute ago when we were looking back on the stern, but yes, Iwami does have torpedoes. She has a pair of quadruple launchers, one kind of angled on each side of the ship, almost in kind of a Graf Spee style back here at the stern. All right. These are essentially the same 12-kilometer torpedoes mounted by Zhao, Kagero, Shimakaze. All of the high-tier Japanese destroyers pretty much have access to this torpedo. And there it is, right? The Type 93 Mod 3, 24,000 alpha damage, 12-kilometer range, 67 knots of speed on a 2-minute reload. These are nasty torpedoes, okay? If you actually end up brawling with these, I mean, you will devastate somebody with them because they hit like trains. However, I think it's more likely, more common, let's say, that you might find yourself using them, firing them over your stern as you were kiting away. If you were somebody who was chasing you and you wanted to be kiting someone, that's a position you might find yourself in which case these torpedoes would be very, very useful. In fact, while we're sitting here talking about the main battery, why don't we have a look at her gun angles? Because that might actually be relevant, right? Might she actually be a better kiter than she is kind of moving forward? And the answer is, no, not really. She can get all 4 turrets to action 25 degrees off the bow, and it looks like about 28 degrees off the stern. So she's not quite as good a brawler as you might wish in that regard, or a kiter, I should say. But the 25 degrees off the bow is nice. That's actually really good turret angles. If you can keep that angle to someone, most of their incoming fire will bounce. We'll have a quick look at the torpedo tube angles as well while we're here. And yeah, they're a little more, the launch sectors are a little more stern focused. Again, that's not shocking to me. Looks like you can bring them to action starting at 46 degrees off the bow, all the way back to, looks like 37 degrees off the stern. So they do have better angles for kiting, but, you know, they're the kind of thing that you have to pay attention to, but you will be able to make good use of them, and they are really, really good torpedoes. So keep those in mind. As a battleship in World of Warships, she does have 2 airstrike charges. You should be used to this by now if you're playing Battleship at high tier. Submarines are back, at least for now. So she has that ability available to her. Anti-aircraft defense. We hinted at it earlier, but this is another place that Iwami differs significantly from Hizen. Her anti-aircraft firepower is way better than Hizen. Now, it's compared to her contemporaries, it is not amazing, okay? This is not magically the best Tier 9 AA battleship in the game or anything, but it is better than other Japanese options at Tier 9, okay? For starters, she gets 8 flak puffs at 1470 a pop. Now, that damage is a little lower than her other Japanese contemporaries. It's more comparable for what you find elsewhere in the tier, but 8 puffs is a lot, right? That is definitely on the high side, certainly for the Japanese, and definitely on the high side for the tier. Continuous damage, again, you're getting a nice buff here. You're looking at 203 base AA in the outer bubble there. That's not quite best in tier. You're looking at ships like Alsace and Jean Bart, and it looks like, is that Kearsarge? Kearsarge even above this. But that's it. Like, you're pretty much on the high end of outer bubble AA DPS. The struggle, of course, is because you're Japanese, you don't have a middle ring at all. No Japanese Tier 9 battleship has a mid-ring anti-aircraft defense. And then so that means you are stuck with the 25 millimeter triples and singles that the Japanese are known for all over your inner ring to make up for it. The only kind of good news there is that you have a lot of them. Your inner bubble is quite good. It's pretty comparable to Izumo and Hizen, right? This is not anything to get excited about. It's really the outer bubble where all the benefits are. And all in your AA DPS is, well, it's the best of the Japanese battleships, but it's not going to be anything to get excited about. So it's, again, if you're used to playing Japanese battleships at tier 9, hey, you've got more AA than all your contemporaries. But you're still well behind the French and the Americans and the British and even like the Russians and the Germans have more AA than this, right? So it's not anything to get excited about, even if it is still an improvement. I do kind of actually want to point these out. These triple mounted, look at these guys. These little guys here are 25 millimeter Japanese mounts, right? You're used to seeing this style, right? The triple barreled on the open mount, but the triple barrel on the closed mount is a really neat look for these guys. I love seeing these guns, and it looks like, yeah, there's 6 down each side of the ship, 5 right here along the edge of the ship, the edge of the deck, and then 1 kind of set back, and then you've got 6 more on the other side. Those are just a really neat design. I just like it. All right, quick look at consumables, and you're not going to get too excited here because you have a repair, you're a ship in World of Warships, and of course, you have a heal, you're a battleship. That's it. Doesn't get any fancier than that. What are the differences from Hizen? Well, like I mentioned earlier, you're giving up the aircraft facilities. You have no spotter plane. However, you do get a small consolation prize in exchange for it. Hizen only coming with 3 charges of the repair party, and you see here Iwami gets 4. So that's nice. You're at least, you have the same armor scheme, which is debatably good, but that extra heal, if you can manage your health pool properly, will give you the ability to potentially stay in fights a little longer than her contemporary. Well, and at least than Hizen, the ship she's kind of related to and based on. Anyway, guys, I like the idea of Iwami. She like, when you look at the lines of this ship, she looks kind of like a super Nagato, right? Same kind of looking turret, 8 barrels, beefier, much better AA. And I like Nagato. Am I gonna like Iwami? I hope so. I want to like the ship. On paper, I like the idea of the ship. But Japanese battleships and I have a long and rocky history, so maybe I'll take her out for a few test games, and we'll see. In the meantime, guys, that's our first look at Tier 9 Premium Japanese Battleship Iwami. Hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe, and I'll catch you next time.